Look at that. It's the three of us together again on a Thursday night. It has been a
The
week.
fellowship is back.
Yeah,
It has
there
been
you
a
go.
time and a half.
Speaking of that's actually quite appropriate, Ben, because we're going to talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings later on in the show. I will tell you guys as we welcome everyone into our Thursday night spectacular here. I have started to, well, I say started, I'm on the last of the trilogy. I'm a Return of the King. I'm watching like the 4-hour extended cuts
Nice.
of all of the Lord of the Rings before the Ring of Power comes out later this, I guess September 1st. And I've never sat through the 4-hour cuts before. I've never gone through like the whole ones. They're on HBO Max. And, I got to be honest with you, I'm vibing with them harder this time than I have in times past.
Nice.
I don't know if it's because I've been reading a lot more fantasy books since I originally saw those movies years and years and years and years ago. And I've become more of a fan of the genre, Wheel of Time, Stormlight Archives, etc. So maybe I'm more like in a fantasy mindset. But I've really enjoyed them this time around. Really great films. I didn't appreciate them as much as I appreciate them more now than I had in times past. So,
yeah,
Lord of the Rings, as good as ever. Let's go around the upside down pyramid and check in with everyone as we get this lovely Thursday started. A Jimmy cameo, exactly. We got Jimmy in the house. Jimmy, let's start with you.
Like I wasn't here on the last stream we had. Come on.
Hey, it's been a long time. It feels like. How's your week been, Jimmy? I'm moving around and everything. You're busy. Have things slowed down for
Man,
you? Doing all right?
let me tell you, it has been way too long for me to finally say that I'm done working at where I used to work. My last day was yesterday. Thank God.
For those who don't know, we're making that much money on YouTube.
Yeah, no. I'm moving to a different store. This is the last stream I have to do at this place. I move into my new apartment on Saturday, and it's permanent. And
Nice.
I'm beyond ready. I'm not looking forward to the 4-hour drive, but
Congrats.
Hey, I've grown accustomed to the lodge back then.
It looks like a storage unit, man.
That's right. I've grown accustomed. Ben, how are you doing? How are you doing right now? I feel like with so little Star Wars news, we're not texting as much. It's been a little more sparse. How are things going on your side of the world?
So I finally, I've been preparing myself the whole summer, getting back into shape. I haven't worked out since the pandemic, and I finally broke that mark where I'm like back to the gym full time. 4 days a week, and my brother's just like whipping me back into shape. I told you guys he's a professional fitness trainer.
Yeah.
As far as just entertainment go, like we spoke about it a bit earlier last time, like I'm happy that Andor kind of got pushed back so we get a little bit of breathing room. Yeah. So I've been on you, Josh, have been on your fantasy streak, right? Like reading and watching Lord of the Rings. I'm in my retro streak. I turned on my PS2, took it out of the closet, and I put one of the Champions of Norath games. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them.
No.
Oh yeah, EverQuest, bro.
Yeah. They're part of the EverQuest world universe, and they're basically these over-the-top Diablo-esque kind of like games. And playing that, and then the reason I'm mentioning it, I went back to online Google and just randomly searching like wallpapers, artwork, and whatnot. And there's such brilliant art there, and it brings it home to being a fan in general, whether you like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, whatever you like. There's such a big component of it that goes outside of the main thing, outside of the main medium. It's like you could check out artwork now. You could go, if you're like, Firefly, you could go to a comic book store, check out comic books, even Star Trek. It's so multimedia now. It's just fascinating, man.
I love
enjoying a retro game.
One thing, and this is an example of it in a way, but like the internet has allowed fandoms, I feel like, to you to be exposed to so many levels of a fandom. You can find like just the mainline media, like the games, and you can find like communities dedicated things you might never have known existed. You can kind of get access to via the internet, and that's awesome. And this is again a symptom of that. And as was said, yes, for those who don't know, if you're not aware, I don't know if Jimmy or Ben is. This is from Buc-ee's. Okay. Buc-ee's, if you've never been through Texas, and I guess a couple other southern states, Mississippi, maybe Florida, Buc-ee's is the best. To call it a gas station is like an injustice. But it is the king. And if you're ever in Texas, or you're ever driving through the South of the US, you have to stop at a Buc-ee's. It will change your life fundamentally. I could spend hours talking about my love for Buc-ee's. But
I could say it's not a gas station because the best gas station will always be 7-Eleven.
Look, here's the thing. I don't even want to get into like all the intricacies that make Buc-ee's like the king of it's like a store. I mean, if you don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's giant. I'll send you guys. I'm getting the vibe that Jimmy and
I know what it is. I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm getting I could see how Ben wouldn't, because Ben being an East Coaster, it's like the other side of the, like, you're never gonna be.
Dude, I don't even drive. I don't know how to drive.
Okay, yeah, okay. So Buc-ee's is like the king, and I will tell you, this is just my advice for chat. You take this, okay? If you're ever on a road trip through the South, there's a Buc-ee's. Like, it is the best place to use the restroom. They have the most pristine, clean restrooms, huge. They have the stalls, aren't stalls. They're individual rooms with like locking doors, just lined up. They have just like attendants in the bathrooms to clean them at all times. It's fantastic. So you keep that. You just keep that information for all you folks who are driving through on your cross-country road trips. Stop at your local Buc-ee's. Let's go, Buc-ee's. All right.
It's like Star Wars Hotel, but on the go.
It's better than the Star Wars Hotel. I guarantee it. All right. I guarantee half the price. No, actually a lot less than the price.
Nice plug. I mean, are they paying you?
If Buc-ee sponsored me right now, I would lose it. Buc-ee Star Wars collab needs to come in.
It's legit fan right there.
Goodness. Huge fan. Okay. Huge fan. I love a well-run operation, man. I'll tell you. Well, speaking of well-run operations, the Empire is making a return to the big screen in Rogue One, coming back to IMAX theaters.
Man, what a transition!
Next Friday. Thank you. I appreciate it. And for those who have not seen, we got a new IMAX poster for the return. Now, not only is it coming back to theaters, it also is going to have a 9-minute preview of Andor with the special. So I gotta tell you guys right now, first of all, I like the poster. Kind of a nice cool vibe to it, a little different than a lot of the other posters had a lot of the shades of blue and green, bringing in the kind of final beach confrontation. But for me, I am absolutely going to see this. My local theater is playing it, I think five different days. There's a chance to go see it. Of course, I want to see the Andor preview, but more than that, I have very, very fond memories of Rogue One. Like, I don't watch it all the time. I've watched it obviously, 5-6 times, but it's been a while. It's probably been 2 years since I've watched Rogue One. I would say at least probably 2 years. And I've never seen it in IMAX, and I'm ready to go kind of challenge the film and see if it holds up. Does my memory serve? Does it meet my expectations? Is it better in the big screen? So I am 100% planning to go see Rogue One. I was thinking about this as we were prepping for the stream. Rogue One, I think, is in my one of my top Star Wars movies because of the way it took my expectations and it gave me this amazing film. We've talked about it before. I didn't have great excitement going in. Surprised me so much, and I think that has kind of impacted my view of the film. But to the two of you, let's start with Jimmy. Jimmy, we were talking about before the stream, there might not be an IMAX really close to you. I
got a map pulled up right now. Yeah, I could go to an IMAX when I move. Ooh. So I will be dragging Gale to see this in IMAX.
Nice.
Because this movie is perfect.
I am really excited to see what of Andor they show as well. 9 minutes, like that's kind of an interesting clip length.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying it's going to be the opening of the first episode. Now, cool. That is all just speculation. Who knows? It could be a fucking, sorry, excuse my language. It could be a sizzle reel for all we know.
That could be very fun, depending on how confident they are in the show. Like, it tells a lot to me. I like the fact that they're finding a window to rep the show. Ben, a fan of cinema, a real connoisseur himself.
He knows what a masterpiece is.
You've probably filmed an IMAX. You probably had an IMAX camera during your film school.
In my backyard, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Are you going to go see Rogue One in IMAX? I know you like the film. Is it going to be worth a rewatch, worth an afternoon or an evening for you?
That's a funny one. It's, it was a perfect film that nobody expected. It's like, the trailer sneaked up on me and my brother. Yep. And afterwards, me and him were in Israel visiting our grandma. And he's like passing his phone to me, hey, Ben, there's a new Star Wars trailer. And we obviously knew the film is coming out. It's just, I didn't have any excitement for it. but it was so exciting. And in theaters, I still had that nagging feeling where it fell, unfortunately, into the trap where it's like there's zero emotional beat. Like I didn't care about any of the characters, but the action and the visuals, like the rest of the movie was so legit and so above everything else.
Mm-hmm.
About 45 minutes into it, I'm just like, I had this inner dialogue. Just shut up and eat it, man. Just shut up. You just close off that inner critic until the end of the movie. Enjoy it. So, because honestly, by the time that the Rogue Squadron arrived to Scarif, I was literally ecstatic.
Yeah.
And by the time that the Vader came out, Josh, you mentioned like you had fond memories, experience watching it. I actually did as well, because traditionally what I do is every time a Star Wars movie comes out in theater, I buy the tickets for all my friends. And we go like at least 5-10 people deep. We'll like take the entire row. And as Vader came out, I was like, I'm looking at my friends over there, and everybody's face, even my brother, who's not the biggest Star Wars fan, he's like, you could see the reaction, you could see the crowd response. As far as going back to it and seeing it again, I don't know, man. Like, I enjoyed the movie. I own the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Maybe I've seen it last year, maybe not. I don't remember. Maybe it's been 2 years. It's not enough of a, like, oh my God, I need to go and rewatch. I probably will not see it.
The logic, the reason you liked it is the reason I think I want to go see it again, is like the action, the set pieces, the sound, like it feels worthy of an IMAX. You know, if it was more of a character driven, self-contained story, I'd feel less of the impulse, but I really want to dive in. And when Rogue One came out, I was, you know, obviously I've been into Star Wars heavily my whole life, but I've gone through phases where maybe I wasn't as consuming Star Wars content every day like I am now, and obviously making it. And so I want to go back again as someone who makes content, who's like spends hours and hours and hours a week in this universe and kind of revisit it. Just to respond here to Anthony, yeah, I would absolutely love to see the Siege of Mandalore on the big screen. If they did like a rewatch of some of those animated shows, or chapters of Mandalorian in the big screen, I'll be there. I like these kind of opportunities. And if you have friends, I wish all of us lived close because we could all get together and go watch it together. I think that'd be a really fun experience.
Eventually, we're going to push one of us to move closer.
Well, once the check from Bucky's clears, we'll have to get the
we'll get a vacation house somewhere.
You know how they have like the big gaming companies get sponsored by like Welcome to the Game House by Rocket Mortgage. We'll be like,
oh yeah,
welcome
Rocket
to the
Mortgage for 100 Thieves, and
we'll be like,
Optic.
Welcome to the Star Wars welcome to the Gabbing Gonks house, sponsored by Bucky's, and it'll be like all this gas station merch. It'll be great.
Did you guys go rewatch Phantom Menace in 3D?
No. I wanted to,
but
I did not.
I saw it in IMAX.
I wish I would have.
Because George Lucas was like, "Oh, you should go see it. You know, it's a better film." He was so like in his behind the camera mode when he was like pitching that movie. We knew I was there, like, because they wanted to update it, bring it back to a new audience. But I just grabbed my brother. He's like, "Ben, really? You're not even like a huge." I'm like, "Dude, can we just go see it?" So I did see it in theaters. I still have pictures on Facebook of like they had these posters where like you put your, you know.
Oh, your face through the poster and all that. Yeah. Those are fun.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool. I wish I'd have done it like Jimmy. So I'll probably go take a chance, especially what's really nice about, again, at least the theaters close to me, they seem to be doing multiple days. So even if you can't make the 26th, you know, maybe you can go 27th or something in the afternoon. So excited. I plan to check out Rogue One. And to kind of connect it in, the Andor preview, honestly, like I'm excited for the first look. In fact, it'll be kind of interesting for me to see Andor on the big screen and then take it home. I'll be curious because one of the things I've heard, I've said it, I've heard you say it, Ben, the visuals, at least in the trailer, make it look more of like a film. So if I'm going to be in theaters, I wonder if I'll kind of read it the same way. Like, okay, this actually kind of felt like it was up to that standard. But there is a number, and I'll go ahead and share this as we transition. There's a number of new little small Andor pieces we've gotten since we last spoke. A number of various screenshots of our lead here. We have Andor rocking the famous Star Wars has become synonymous with ponchos. You know, ponchos are kind of the way, and I'm a huge fan. Andor looking good here. We also have Mon Mothma looking just fantastic cast. I mean,
Molly Damon.
I know, just absolutely fantastic. We have this has oh my gosh, this is going to speak to Ben so much.
It is.
This picture says Bix Colleen Adria Ahorna does some Laura Crofting. Ben, big Laura Croft fan here. We've if you visit his Twitter page, you'll find
Wait a second. Hold on. I have to chime in on this. Hold on a second.
Oh no!
Leave that there for a second. So I have recently discovered, when the original game was in pre-production stages, Lara Croft was actually a Latin woman. She was what was her name? Laura Cruz. She was supposed to be Hispanic.
Oh, okay.
And because the executives, they sort of vetoed her. It's like, oh, it's going to be too obscure. We don't want this. He kind of gave her the British accent. He made her basically into a white woman. But she was originally meant to be, I think, Mexican, if I'm not mistaken. Guys, please correct me if I'm in room if you know the story. And I'm looking at the actress, so I'm like, can we have a movie reboot? Because like neither the Angelina Jolie nor the newest one, will, at least if they kind of did like a justice, maybe this could be it.
And this actress is Adria Ahorna, I believe. How you pronounce that?
Yeah.
She is from San Juan, Puerto Rico, actually. So yes, she is Puerto Rican.
Nice.
Puerto Rican. In our next screenshot here, we have, this is an interesting one. This kind of goes back to this uniform Jimmy had called back in our kind of trailer watch along. And this is the actor Kyle Soler, who is named Cyril Karn, and he's in trouble.
I would say Cyril Karn.
Okay, Cyril Karn. In trouble, looks like breaking the law. Been a ne'er-do-well.
Good, because his character just looks like a tool. Every frame in the trailer I see him, I'm like, I just don't. You got a punchable face.
Oh, like he's too straight-faced?
Yeah.
I think he's gonna play the role too well. Which is a good thing, you know. He's
by
just,
the book, kind of like
he just looks like an absolute tool of the Empire.
And the last picture we have here, as I go ahead,
So
I will tell you
we
though,
got a bunch of little pictures today too.
we did. And if you have ones I'm not sharing, let me know. But I will tell you too about as I pull up this one from Total Film.
I did not see that one. Ooh.
Yeah, this one was the first look at Eddie Karn, funny enough, in Andor, played by Catherine Hunter. So this is
his mom.
I'm guessing, in the very punchable
fascinating
face. So there we go.
This gives me the character's mom.
So the dude. So this character on the right is the very punchable face guy we just looked at.
Yeah, his character's name is Cyril Karn.
Yeah, and this is
the
his
lady
mother,
here. Yeah,
we think
this gives me very big 2001 vibes.
The kind of layout of the ship here.
Yeah, like a Space Odyssey.
I agree. Yeah,
not the year 2001.
Yeah.
No, I knew what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, it's all that plain white, very sterile look.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about this is it looks like they built a practical set with this table kind of built into the ground. It's got the kind of angles, to your point.
I can hear this scene, man. He's like, "Mom, I'm like gonna go and join the rebellion." He's like, "Son, no, you can't do this, son. You need to."
She's gonna slap him across the face.
I need you on the farm with like moisture farming. He's like, "Mom, I'm gonna go," and it's gonna go. It's just like for 45 minutes.
Jimmy walks up and punches him. I can't help myself.
I can't help.
I had to do it. I couldn't help it.
Unless you've got more, let me send you on Twitter. I've got
send me some. As we're pulling up some pictures of Andor and we're talking about Rogue One, I didn't get a chance to say that Rogue One, the Vader scene in Rogue One, not just the action scene when he is having his conversation with Krennic. I really love that scene. I mean, his be careful not to choke on your aspirations is just the best. It's one of my favorite Vader lines ever. It's so good. It's just so well. Oh, the whole scene has just got the dead on vibe. Okay, we got some more. Let's see here. Jimmy's giving us the goods. Even more Andor pictures. It feels like we're going to get the whole show in pictures at this point.
Yeah, I didn't see any of these.
No, these came out early this morning, I think.
Okay. So more kind of, it looks like back here we have some sort of, vendor or some sort of little repair shop or mechanic shop.
It's just a Radio Shack.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And we also have Andor just walking the streets. Again, I really enjoy how much as I'm looking at these screenshots,
the visual language is very in line with Rogue One. Like the translation is seamless, whether they got the same people, the cinematographers behind it, but like the color tones are right, the designs are right, the type of
practical costumes.
Yeah, like the way everything looks just the part, man. I'm digging this.
As we're looking through, and I'll go ahead and pull up a picture of our lead as we're talking about this. One thing we were talking about offline before the stream started was the fact, tying in Rogue One and Andor together. Does it surprise you guys at all that this show is actually following Andor? Of all the heroes and all the various crew members we interacted with in that film, would Andor? I mean, I'll be honest with you. When they announced the show, and I've said this before, I was very surprised they picked Andor. He didn't have necessarily the most it didn't seem like he had some unique power or some unique faction. And maybe that'll make this great. He's maybe the most relatable to you or I. I was initially very surprised that Andor was getting kind of the center stage. Did you guys feel the same way? Did you feel like maybe it should follow, Jyn Erso a little closer instead? Let's start with you, Ben. Where are you at with Andor as the lead coming out of Rogue One?
I'm going to be a little bit on the critical/negative side here. Honestly, to me, it sort of revealed with all the issues and problems I had with the film, where we obviously all knew about the extensive reshoots. A lot of us had our suspicions that they were trying to kind of like play it cool. No, it's just regular.
Can I say one thing before I forget, Ben?
Sure.
You make a good point. Like, that movie had so many reshoots and work done. It's kind of incredible the film was even decent when it came out. I mean, really it was, because you don't see if you see a show get worked, like a movie get worked on as much as that, typically it comes out a mess. But go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Right. And I keep forgetting the name of this director who's known throughout Hollywood for coming into these problematic scripts or unfinished films, and he does a repair work. And he even openly said it, like, I don't give a damn about Star Wars. Like, I'm not a geek or nerd. I'm not like there to placate the fans. I'm just there to look at this train wreck and try to fix it. He was so explicit about it. And I mean, there's a reason why we're not hearing Gareth Edwards' name. We don't see him in any celebrations, or at least not to my memory. He kind of like obscurely faded into, like, I guess he played it cool and he was diplomatic. But I guess circling back to the show, Jyn Erso, who is advertised in the trailer to be the main hero, she's not even a reluctant hero in the film. She's completely sidelined by Cassian Andor's the actor's performance, his role in it, how he schools her, I have been in this fight. And that spelled out the problem where, they're kind of like testing out the ground, and the showrunners are saying, well, let's make a judgment call here. She obviously didn't work. What other characters we have? Chirrut Imwe, he's not part of any resistance. He's just kind of chilling down the side, watching the Jedi Temple or whatever.
Yeah.
Who is the most likely figure that we could go run for and spin it? Because also, don't forget, guys, I wanted to bring this into discussion, that Rogue One initially started not as Disney-era single solo film pitch. It started 10 years prior to that as a potential TV show. Pretty sure we know this, right? We follow these news. But perhaps a lot of the Cassian script lines or storylines that it maybe devised or playing around for a number of years, and that's why they kind of were trying to figure out what's the format: 5 seasons, 3 seasons, what are we doing here? Maybe a lot of the stuff that is going to end up on the screen has been in the making alongside Rogue One project from a number of years.
Interesting. Like, this was some of the story they didn't explore, maybe, or some of the original draft outlines. That's fascinating and could be exciting. And again, to your point, Ben, before we pass it to Jimmy, the visual language, the tone seems to be right in line with Rogue One.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the material, they're saying, like, from the creators of Rogue One. So it seems like they have some of that original creative team back together to work on the show. Jimmy, was Andor your pick? I mean, it seemed like there were so many other fan favorites coming out of the movie at first. I mean, everyone was a big fan of Donnie Yen's performance and all of that. I mean, where did you fall coming out of Rogue One?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think anyone actually expected anything else to be made out of Rogue One.
Fair.
Yeah.
So when they're like, we're going to have an Andor show that follows Cassian, I just went, cool. I'm excited. And here's the thing. So why is it not Jyn Erso? These are great questions. These are questions that we, why is that the case? Because Jyn was the main lead of that. We know there's a lot of her life we don't know about. Disney's at it again with my internet, because we have 2 books that fill in Jyn's gaps. You've got Catalyst, which follows her as a little girl with her parents, and then Rebel Rising, which tells the entire story of what she did after Saw Gerrera came and picked her up. So her entire backstory is filled out.
That's a good point.
Chirrut Inwe and Baze Malbus, they have their own little book. I think it's a young reader's book that came out.
Right.
There's not much on Bodhi, I don't think, which is sad. He's my favorite from Rogue One, and we know about K2. So Andor was the mysterious character. He always just had this evil, dark side to him,
Sure, yeah.
Saying like, I did horrible things for the Empire, but I did it because I wanted to get to this point. And I kind of saw that in my most recent rewatch of Rogue One, in the beginning of the movie, where he meets his little informant there in that alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts freaking out after he kills the stormtrooper. He's like, hey, it's all right. We're going to get out of here. And then he just shoots him in the back.
Yeah.
Like, no loose ties, And that right there, I was like, that right there got me a little more excited for Andor, because I want to see some of this dark, gritty, questionable stuff that he did and was swept under the rug.
It's morally gray.
The Empire.
Yeah.
It's a very morally gray area that you could watch this and be like, wow, Andor was not a good guy. Why are we rooting for him in Rogue One? So because we had everyone else kind of fleshed out in books and comics and stuff like that, I know there was the Andor comic with him and K2, but I think this is just going to be a better way of bringing that all in, especially in season 2, because in a recent interview, they actually asked Diego Luna why K2 is not going to be in the show. And he just said, season 2 follows up right up before Rogue One starts. That should answer all your questions. And that is what he said. So I think we're going to be seeing K2 as well, just later in season 2. I think Andor was the smart choice, because I think there's just so much storytelling you can use with his character to show just like the lengths people will go to.
I like it.
I want to see if it's going to show, because he's basically going to be another Saw Gerrera
style.
So it's going to show like the difference in he got out of that, whereas Saw Gerrera is like, still, let's blow everything up.
I think that's well said, Jimmy. You called out a number of good, good reasons to investigate, study the character more. I think that what you kind of called out is that Andor might be the first gray Jedi. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But he had that more. He had that more morally gray kind of behavior on screen. I think that was like kind of jarring, maybe to the general audience, where it was like, he just like shot an ally in the back. Well, an ally, but he shot, do what must be done. This is war. Like, we're not cutting corners. And I thought that to me is one of the reasons I really liked Rogue One, is I felt like, okay, this is going beyond the animated shows. This is going on beyond what we've seen on screen of like what it would really mean to be part of a rebellion in a tyrannical government of this scale. It wouldn't be pretty and clean and like, as much as I love Clone Wars, and they've had some very emotional and dark arcs of war in Clone Wars, sometimes it's just a pretty good, clear cut, good versus evil, and we're good to go. And that was not the case in Andor. So I think well said, Jimmy. I think we'll have a lot of fun diving into what he had to go through to get him to this point. So I plan to see Andor at some point Rogue One next week, and we'll see the Andor preview. So I will probably make a video or talk to Jimmy or do something.
Yeah, whoever sees it first is going to put the video out.
And we'll just say something about what we thought. It will not in any way define the show, obviously, but it'll be fun to kind of be able to see on the big screen.
To reminisce.
Yeah, and to see Andor on the big screen. Something we won't get to do for the rest of the episodes. All right. Andor is coming. Not a lot of other Star Wars kind of breaking news or shows in the last couple of weeks, except for earlier this morning, there was a very interesting article that came out of Eurogamer. And you might recall from a couple weeks back on this very stream, I reported the death of Kotor, the Kotor remake.
There you go.
And apparently reports of its death, of its demise, might be greatly exaggerated, because in Eurogamer today, they said Embracer, who is the parent company of Aspyr, who is behind the game, has revealed that one of its AAA projects has transitioned to another studio within the group. And the rumor, based on a number of different things, is that is KOTOR. And the KOTOR remake has just moved to a different studio inside of the organization, and they'll pick up the development work and continue forward. So a little bit of an update here, not much really out of like official confirmation, but Eurogamer is a fairly reputable source. They have insider information a lot of the time. And this would be awesome. I'd be very excited if this pans out. It goes with what Ben said on the live stream, which is, hey, I've been around a long time and seen many a game canceled and restarted and put on hold and come back. And so maybe we're getting that with KOTOR. A little bit of excitement. Just want to follow up. That's what we do here on Star Wars and High. We're true journalists. We follow up all the leads. We, keep you guys informed. Any thoughts on the KOTOR remake, guys? I mean, is your excitement back up? Is it what you expected? Any kind of initial little speculation here?
I mean, I really don't have much of a reason to be excited about this yet. I mean, obviously I'm going to play it, but until I see a full gameplay trailer, I'm just going to kind of keep sitting and waiting, because this happens with every Star Wars game ever. There is never a clean-cut game idea, game development, and game on the shelf. Never. They have the worst time getting Star Wars games made. It's almost like it's like a curse of some sort. It's one of those don't walk under a ladder, black cat crosses your path, bad luck to make a Star Wars game because it always crumbles. So I'm not surprised that it fell out and now it could be coming back. There's the issues with Eclipse, we're not going to see a new Star Wars game for quite a while. So, and
outside of Survivor,
you know what? Knocking on wood right now, and this is natural wood, that Jedi Survivor makes it out with no problems.
Yeah. We have that the studio's, delivery on the first game gives a little bit of confidence we haven't had in the past. But, unfortunately, I think this might be just a symptom of the video game industry as a whole. Very few games come on time, very few come as expected. And it's become a very kind of demanding work culture as well. It seems to get a lot of complaints from people in the industry about the challenges of working in it and delivering games. And it's a little bit of a mess. So,
I mean, as a Call of Duty fan, I am just bred for disappointment. So this is nothing new to me.
I would say that, first of all, Jimmy, that's a great take. It's like, hey, until we see solid, hard, screenshots of videos, neither discard the game nor get too hyped about it. It's like, okay, the announcement has been made. For me, honestly, I was already a lot more relaxed where I was previously more tense. Like, hey, where are they going to announce it? They have to remake this game. It's such a classic. Yeah. It was sort of like the experience of PlayStation 1 era Final Fantasy fans who wanted the remake of 7. Why? Because it was the most demanded remake of all time. People knew it was a game changer. Introduced Western audience RPG, blah, 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 blah. People knew eventually it was going to come. It took a whole 20 years.
Yeah.
Even before
I literally remember the first trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake in 2013. And then
television happened. Yeah. And the KOTOR, the moment they announced it, the reason that I got relaxed was that, okay, it's out there, it's in the air. Yes, it will go through a trying, difficult, challenging development moment because building a game from ground up, especially with a high reputation like this one, is a much harder proposition than shooting a film or TV series. And the fact that it's already out there in the open, in the air, it's been official. Yes, they will have difficulties. Yes, it might get delayed, but there's no way in hell they're going to completely revert and say, hey, guys, you know what? We rushed into this. We're not going to make the game because guess what? If anything, Lucasfilm will pick this up and they're like, you know what? Maybe it needs to go back home to BioWare. Somebody's going to freaking make this game.
Yeah. And that might be.
Yeah. At this point, I think it's a good idea to distance yourself, wait for the good news. I think people kind of blew it out of proportion because we're in this kind of Star Wars drought. There's not much to talk about. Oh my God, my world has just exploded. They canceled it. Nobody's canceled it. It's a difficult, challenging moment. Guys, I want to bring this to your attention. I would be not surprised at all if they just basically pulled out most of the staff behind this project, reorganized it, perhaps created a new company, not Asper Media, something else, brought all the people they mentioned from the original KOTOR game that back into the fold and say, you know what, there's a new leadership here. Let's infuse it with new energy, new direction here, and let's keep going making this game.
I was firmly on the it was canceled train. Sorry, Ben. I thought for sure it was. Just because it felt like, to Jimmy's point, after the Eclipse debacle, after this, it's just like, man, this is just not really going anywhere, and they're probably feeling like let's cut our losses. But more and more, I do feel like you're right. At some point in our lifetime, in the next 15 years, we will probably see a remake of KOTOR. It just might be way farther off than a lot of us thought when they showed a little, CGI Revan looking fantastic. It might be just a little more time.
This news is a step in the right direction, though.
That's fair. Fair point indeed. Well, I have a little bit of a topic that does not disappoint my good friends Jimmy and Ben, and that is Star Wars books. And there was a new novel this week that has hit the scene involving two of our favorite heroes getting married. And we have some of the artwork that I saw from Entertainment Weekly. That was kind of fun. A little rendition of the wedding. We have Princess and the Scoundrel, a take on just, maybe, as Ben has talked about, maybe a little bit of a riff on old Legends novels. The courtship, is it the courtship of Leia? Is that the
courtship of Princess Leia?
Princess Leia. A little bit of a riff here. First of all, do both of you have the new Princess and the Scoundrel? Oh, here, let's get Ben up on the big screen. Here.
I picked up the new one. It came in the mail. I didn't get the chance to read it yet. I do understand Jimmy is on it.
Yeah. How's the cover in person for both of you? How do you guys like the new cover? Is it gorgeous?
Well,
as good as
I haven't picked up the physical book yet. I do have the audio book. I'm on chapter 33. I've got 5 hours and 6 minutes left. So I'm very close to finishing this.
How long is the book in the whole time, Jimmy?
A little less than 13 hours.
13 hours. That's a pretty sizable book.
It's like I think it's 12 hours, 46 minutes. I think is what it was.
We got a chunk here.
It's a hefty one. It's pretty lengthy.
Let's go ahead and see Ben's. Ben, you got the physical copy in your hand?
342 pages.
Not bad.
And this one is 326.
I love that cover, man. As you're flipping through, that's a fantastic cover.
326 pages. So they're about the same size in terms of length. Both covers look absolutely fantastic. I think we spoke about this earlier.
Yeah,
that this
we
one
did.
Deliberately channels that early Vance era. Everything, right? The color scheme.
Yeah.
It's like it's giving homage to the previous book and saying like, hey, we recognize you, we understand Dave Wolverton did an amazing job on this. I sort of honestly a little bit dread getting into it. I'm a little bit in the concern because I know nothing about this author, so I don't have any preconceived notions what the quality is going to be like. I just hope it doesn't riff too much on the old book. I don't want to see an instance where like, oh man, we've seen this before.
I will tell you, as someone who likes to display their Star Wars collections, their books, the book might be worth it just for the cover. Even if the book is absolutely garbage, I just love the cover.
Let me be the first to tell you that I'm almost done with it, and this book is far from garbage.
Good.
It is much fun.
Have you read the Legends novel in question here, Jimmy?
I don't. I do own it, though.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to try to find time to read it because I'd like to do a comparison video on both of them. That's for sure. But I know there was a big deal when this book came out for two reasons. One was we've already seen this in the courtship of Princess Leia. It's not canon anymore, guys. Get over it. Two was the Halcyon, and that was a big one. This book in no way is saying go to the Halcyon and spend your money. It is like, yeah, they're on it. Doesn't even matter that they're on it.
Yeah, it's just the name of the ship. Okay.
That's Jim, can I ask you a spoiler-free question about this book?
Yes.
Because I remember when I was picking up the original way back in last century, my impression was that it was going to be Courtship of Princess Leia, like a little bit distracting sort of side mission. Like, hey, by the way, we're making this romantic story out of this entire franchise. Is there like action in there? Is it like Star Wars, or is it mostly concentrated on just their romantic relationship?
Neither.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Is it a murder mystery?
There is some stressful stuff going on. To avoid spoilers, I will say there's no action as of yet.
Okay.
There have been some moments where I'm like, this could be bad. This is dangerous. But at the same time, it's more redacted. Well, good. It's really hard for me to explain without giving any spoilers, but it's more so.
But it's not like DLC side mission, like, hey, by the way, here's on the side Han and Leia. It's like it feels like a Star Wars.
That's purely subjective to the reader. To me, this feels like, because it takes place right after Return of the Jedi, this feels like exactly what would happen next, The Death Star is destroyed, everyone's on Endor going, woo, we won. You get a little bit of that break time.
Right.
before you get to Aftermath, you know?
Oh, dude, you got me excited, man. This is the first time I actually got excited about this book because I have a reliable source, somebody whose opinion I, respect. I can trust you with this. I think I'm going to get into this without any kind of.
And I think by the time you read it, I think you'll kind of understand what I mean by saying it's not so much romance novel and it's not so much an action-packed pew pew novel.
Yeah.
There is a very strict middle to it, and when you catch all the little bits, you're like, oh, it's tied into quite a few books.
Okay.
It's almost makes me think of a lot of different parts of different Star Wars Legends novels where they would bring Leia's character into focus, because a lot of expanded universe, it did have prominent female powerful heroes, but it was still a very male dominated franchise.
Yeah.
The authors had to navigate it and bring Leia back here and there to focus on her political aspect, because in the Legends it takes a sweet moment before Leia even contemplates becoming a Jedi. So how do you justify her being in the novel and not just being this random ass kicker? Yes, she has to wield a gun, but then you have that whole political component to the books.
I will say, so like, as I've been listening to the audiobook, one thing that's super cool about this, and I have not seen an audiobook do something like this unless it's an audio drama. There's two narrators.
Oh, male. Okay,
so the Stormlight Archives, my most precious, they have a male and a female.
I was like, where is this coming from?
They have a male and female narrator, and when it's like a male character, the guy does the voice, and when it's the female character, the female does it. They're very famous, and they're actually married in real life, and they have the recording studio in their house. And so I love that when they do that, is what I was going to say.
This is sort of like that. Each chapter rotates between the perspective of Han and Leia. So they have a male narrator for the chapters for Han and a female narrator for Leia. So they will do all of the voices per chapter. It's a little weird, but I kind of like it. It feels fresh. I can flip-flop back, and I don't get tired of hearing the same voice over and over again. Because a lot of narrators, it's very dry. It's just kind of a droning voice. So getting able to switch back and forth is great. And I will tell you, this book has gotten so many emotional reactions out of me that I was not expecting.
Nice.
There's one thing I really hope, Josh, that you read it. I know, Ben, you're going to, specifically chapter 6. I need someone to talk to about chapter 6.
You're gonna talk about chapter 6. I got you.
Chapter 6.
I'm reading this book next now. You got me.
But and one thing that I do love, because they add music into these audiobooks.
Yes.
Hearing prequel music for original trilogy books, it's just a different kind of feeling. I don't know what it is, but I love it. So
it's called nostalgia.
I suppose you could call it. I just was like, I don't expect to hear this music with these characters. So like when it transitioned, it literally went from Leia's theme into Across the Stars, and I was like, oh, what are we doing here?
That's cool.
I had I'm having a great time with it.
One other thing I will say, and then first of all, it's super exciting to hear that, a book that I would not naturally expect to want to hear this story. And I see, Stevie in chat and Ben talk about how, the courtship of Princess Leia is one of their favorite Legends books, which is just fascinating to me because I never would think just by the concept that that's what would grab you. And then Jimmy is kind of reading the more modern take on it and is seeming to love it. So it's kind of exciting to me. The concept that I wouldn't personally think to develop or to write seems to get fans of different backgrounds, different, preferences involved. So that's really exciting to hear. I do like, just to kind of further the point, male and female narrators can be kind of fun. And Kate Redding and Michael Kramer are the two narrators that they also do the Wheel of Time series. It's just kind of cool. Like they're just masters of the craft. And it's just kind of cool. Like when you have a good narrator in an audiobook, as I've listened to audiobooks, like in some ways can enhance the story and becomes part of the experience. I've had narrators that are, to Jimmy's point, just kind of read the book, and some that it's like, okay, your kind of disposition and voice doesn't necessarily match what I'm hearing in the text. But when you get good ones, they, to me, become like part of the experience. They become part of the comfort of that read. Driving home, listening to that narration, it just becomes part of the experience. So done well, it can be an awesome experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As we come to the last probably 15, 20 minutes of the stream, I wanted to talk about something that was on my mind. This is going to be a free-form topic. This just came to me as we were chatting offline this afternoon. For those who've joined the stream a little late, I've been rewatching the Lord of the Rings films, the 4-hour extended cuts, to prep for Rings of Power, because I'm really excited for Rings of Power for a couple reasons we'll get into, but kind of immersing myself back in Middle-earth. And a series that I've always been kind of lukewarm on. Like, I've read the first 2 books, thought they were fine. When I read them probably 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, so it's been a while. Watched the films, years and years and years ago, and never really revisited them. But after I have been reading more fantasy and spending more time, I appreciate world building more. I appreciate the subtlety. I appreciate a lot of those aspects that maybe I didn't appreciate as a younger audience member. And as I'm rewatching these films, I'm like, oh man, this is great. Like, I'm brought back in, and it's got me excited for Rings of Power. I love that we're exploring new eras of Middle Earth, new characters. But I see, this kind of same sort of division and negativity that I think we see as Star Wars fans in some regards. And I want to focus in. I don't want to talk about all the crazy, like, I'm not talking about the trolls. I'm not talking about the hot take artists. I'm talking about one specific criticism I hear. And I hear it for Star Wars as well. And it's, this story has gone beyond the scope of Tolkien's work, or this story has gone beyond George Lucas's vision. And Star Wars is George Lucas. Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, that's Tolkien. We don't add, we don't go beyond. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Star Wars, I think this group, we're open to different authors coming into the space, different directors. We're looking for good stories in the universe that was built by George. How do you guys handle, how do you look at like the creation living beyond the creator? Does it bother you when Star Wars does things that George maybe didn't envision? Does it bother you that Lord of the Rings might tell stories that aren't accurate to, the textbooks that Tolkien had put together all those years ago and never explained? Let's start with you, Ben. I know Jimmy and I have talked about this before, so I know a lot more about how he feels. How do you feel? How do you feel about what is Star Wars? What is Lord of the Rings? What are these authors, these creators? What do they own? What is true Star Wars? Dive in here. What are your thoughts?
So it goes without saying that George Lucas is the All-Father, just like Tolkien is. It's his world. It's his creation. And I think there's never going to be an instance where people will even begin to forget that he is the one. But also, I'm the kind of an opinion that there's so many talented people, as the latest ILM documentary is showing us, who brought that vision to life. Yeah. That people that showed Lucas what Millennium Falcon could look like, or show him the aliens, or, and it sparked his imagination to continue on. So I think we've seen it time and time again, where the creation outlives its creator. It happened since the ancient classical Greek myth. People always relish the idea of revisiting their favorite heroes. And I personally don't see anything wrong with it, so long that it's done with not necessarily reverence, not being like, by the book, by the letter, what the creator would have done, but extending it in a logical continuation that respects the source materials. As much as we try to steer away with all the controversy in like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, discussions, I understand a lot of criticism. I understand a lot of so-called purists and people that you engage in Twitter wars on Twitter, that they feel sidelined sometimes. They feel ostracized, and they feel very, very emotional, because obviously these stories mean the world to all of us. It's not just entertainment. It's a happy or important memories we form with our loved ones. And when it's something that, in their own view, doesn't extend the natural evolution of ideas, sometimes I look at it. I'll give you guys an example. Even George Lucas did transgress in my own view. When I was looking at the prequel films, one of the big challenges that I had to wrestle with is that ideas did not jive with what I saw as a kid. They went a completely different direction. So I think it needs to happen. I think it will happen regardless how much fans try to hold on to it. Why? Because as audience, as viewers, we constantly have the need to continue the story. Hey, you know what? If I got Tomb Raider 1, it was so damn good experience, I sure as hell want number 2, and I want 3, and I want number 15. keep it infinite, keep it coming. But if the content starts coming in too fast, as we're somewhat experiencing in Star Wars, and some of the material begins to dilute the staying power, the magnetic power. Remember how, Josh, you and I, we talked about, on my previous podcast, how some things don't feel just as exciting anymore. We're kind of like receiving this content as, by the book. It's like, okay, more content. Okay, another show, another game announcement, whatever. People still want to feel excited for Star Wars.
Sure.
They want to be excited for Lord of the Rings. My personal take, it just like, I think I will speak for all three of us, I'm open-minded enough to trust a new author like Claudia Gray or Charles Soule to step in, understand the source material, but not be beholden to it, and being able to push it forward in a way that it resonates with the original audience. But the original audience also have to compromise and come halfway and say, well, you know what? It's not the way it used to be anymore. George is not around, Tolkien is not around, but there's still a lot of interest in this IP. Let's trust these new creators to create something exciting. And if we don't like it, look, at the end of the day, you can be honest about it. And I don't think anybody should be punished for saying, look, I don't think Disney Star Wars is real Star Wars. I don't think this new Lord of the Rings show is going to represent anything cool that like we saw with Peter Jackson's movies. And it's okay to compare. It's okay to say that this filmmaker did it right. These guys, what they're doing, I personally dislike, but I'm going to let other people enjoy it.
Well, and as Giafed and Gail earlier both pointed out, there were like hardcore fans of the books that didn't like Peter Jackson's trilogy. And in fact, like the Tolkien estate, one of Tolkien's children, like did not like Peter Jackson.
Yeah. So you have J.R.R. Tolkien, and then you have his son, Christopher Tolkien, who finished and revised a lot of his father's works that he never finished, and they were republished. He saw, I believe, Fellowship. I don't think he saw any of the others. I know he was quite old even by then.
Yeah.
But he did not like Fellowship of the Ring. Okay, why does that have to speak for the entire?
Well, and
that's a
fan
great
base?
question, Jim.
Yeah, and what he kind of said was like, and Jimmy, you might know the full context, but it's almost like he almost felt like it missed the themes that his father was really passionate about and cared about. And the movie didn't do like, it made it more of an action flick than he felt, because that's what he read from his father's work. That's what he knew his father. But like, we all were like, those movies are great. Like,
and here's the thing with that, because, and Josh, I talked with you about that. And the problem is, if you wanted movies for the Lord of the Rings trilogy that were pure to the books, there'd be nothing happening.
Yeah,
for big chunks.
You'd have like 15 minutes of, look at that mountain. Look at these trees. Look at this little brook right here with the water flowing.
You brought it home, man.
That's Tom Bombadil, by the way. You don't know who he is.
But you will know.
But that would be the point.
Pages.
Yeah, and then you'd have 2 minutes of dialogue and then 30 minutes of scenery.
Yeah.
Because that's, Tolkien's idea was, he really wanted to build this world. And I think it's great. He had such a perfect idea in his head. He just didn't want to leave out any details. He wanted you to see it as he did.
Yeah.
You can't translate that to screen.
Yeah.
What we got was pretty darn effective.
Maybe even I've seen the original like animated movies. They're terrifying.
Yeah, they are. I agree. They're
freaky.
Yeah, they're freaky.
But I don't even know if there's not even much of a difference between that and the live. It's still full of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, when people are like, this isn't what Tolkien had in mind, that's okay, then don't watch it.
Yeah. And how would you know what he had in mind? Would he approve or not? He's not.
Yeah, and I was like, you really want a true show based off what he has in the Second Age? You're going to get a bunch of choppy stuff because he has so much work that he never finished.
Yeah, it's just notes.
Now, if you wanted to be true to that, show. See, now Tolkien's coming after me. Show me a show in the Second Age where it breaks mid-sentence, credits roll.
Yep.
That's it.
And so I will acknowledge, like, I guarantee there are fans out there who are just huge, like, lovers of there are literal classes and textbooks dedicated to the literary design framing of Tolkien's work. So I know there are very passionate folks out there who really love those projects. So I'm not saying like, oh, no one even likes it. My point is, I know those fans exist. And if they feel like, like someone coming in, a big corporation, look, I get it. Amazon's a big corporation. They're easy to hate. They're this big like monopoly thing that we all love to use. We hate that they're like they crush every small bit. Like it's this weird relationship we have with them. And they're coming and it feels like they're making this real corporatized version of a show we love. And I can understand how you get there. But I feel like for me, it's pretty easy if the show's something you don't like. You're just like, okay, like it's not something that Tolkien talked about. This was like these creators kind of spin on it. And I didn't like it. And I still love the 3 movies and the books and I'm good to go. Like it doesn't, to me, it just doesn't, it shouldn't change the love you have for those films or the love you have for those books.
And here's the thing that I see on their side. You know, if you are a purist fan, you want everything to be perfect. You hear there's a new show coming out. That's more for you to enjoy. You're excited. You find out it's going to be nothing like what you know. Sure, you're going to be disappointed.
Right. You know,
you don't have to go and fight everything about it, you know?
Yeah. I
like there's no point in just sitting there and just hating on everything. Like I saw people the other day complaining about costumes because, you know, there's a picture of someone's armor. They were like really zoomed in. So they had like an armored chest plate and they had a suit underneath it that matched the same design, but it was painted on in the, you know, the arm area here.
Right.
And they're like, $1 billion budget, by the way. And that's painted. I'm like, so do you want these actors to be in pain when they're doing this? Do you want them in full clad, like scaled armor? That stuff hurts.
It's just people looking for things to
exactly. There's a difference between, you know, I don't like the show because it's not what the books did.
Yeah.
And I don't like this show, so I'm going to pick apart everything about it to show you you're dumb for liking it.
If you're going into something with this hateful mentality, you're going to end up finding it everywhere. Just to give you guys an example, when I used to manage the comic book store and the X-Men movies started coming out, and I loved most of them. And I had this, usually you have comic book readers who would come in, they create a folder, they come every week and they pick up their stuff. And you build a rapport with them. They're your regulars. They come in, you know their name, you know their likes, you know their dog's name.
Yeah.
And I had this one gentleman, and in the Bronx area where we had the store, there were a lot of comic book authors for DC, for Marvel, that kind of reside like artsy area there.
Yeah.
So I had one gentleman coming in. He was like an older gentleman, like in his late 50s. He's been reading comics for like most of his life. And me and him got into this discussion where he, with his entire being, his body, he despises the X-Men films. And I said, well, why would you dislike them? He said, because that's not what's in the books. And we got into this, and I said, well, would you want to see the story that you already know? But part of the excitement of watching a film is the surprise element.
Yeah.
How excited would you be? I challenged him, and he's an intelligent person. Like, we're having an adult conversation, a disagreement. Like, and I'd asked him, would you be excited watching a 3-hour film that is verbatim the story that you already know the ending to? Yep. And he had to scratch his head for a moment. He's like, and then I brought an example, X-Men: The First Class, which is arguably one of the greatest comic to film adaptations.
It's a good one.
And I told him, look, here is a director who knows the source material. He understands what Stan Lee was trying to say, the message behind the X-Men. These young teens who are unlike others, and they're trying to be something different, and the world hates them for that. He takes these familiar elements and he redesigns the origin story, which is not clearly what we see in the comics, but spiritually is so close home that majority of X-Men fans that, like myself, loved it. And I think when it comes to this Lord of the Rings show, when it comes to Andor, when it comes to Star Wars sequels, I think partially this is where we all come from all different grounds. The extremists, the people who are extremely vocal, the people who extremely love it and defend this stuff, is that we want to see something in it that resonates with the heart and spirit with the original material.
Yeah. I think, you know, both what you guys have said is been, I think, dead on. I'll take, funny enough, I'll play devil's advocate. I'll lean into the people who can feel, you know, concerned. You guys know, I brought it up again tonight. I love the Stormlight Archives. I think it's like the best fantasy series. I just think it's fantastic. And one day there will be a TV adaptation. There'll be a show adaptation or movie, and I'll be like, okay, let's see how it is. And I guarantee you I will be cynical going in. And here's why. I'll play like the best way to look at this. Because I know, and I felt this way a little bit when I watched Wheel of Time show. like I've seen these characters, I've seen this world in its best form, and I want everyone to see it like that. Yeah. When I see the Wheel of Time, and like the show was, I think the show was fine. I think the book was so much better that it's almost like, oh man, people don't know what they're missing. Like they could see these characters in this world in like such a better way that's where I can feel that frustration sometimes. It's like, oh no, you don't, like you heard to talk about Game of Thrones, which is getting its prequel series coming out soon. There's a lot of fans of those books who are like, oh man, like the amount of cool storylines that you just didn't get to read and the history that you don't know about, like you've got to read these books. And so from those types of fans, those passionate fans who are like, oh no, you're getting like a watered down version of the greatness. I get it. Like I get how that feels. We've all been there where you're like, oh, okay, the movie was good, but like, man, the depth of the story and this beautiful world I got to experience. Why I feel a little different about this show is like, there's nothing out there there's very little out there about the Second Age. It to me is almost, dare I say, like a what if else world. Like, hey, this is a creative group's approach to what they think happened in Middle Earth. And so it's even hard for people to say, well, the books were a better representation because there's nothing here. So I understand passionate fans who have found a universe and found characters that they love, and they want their friends and their loved ones to experience it the same way they did. And when they see their friends and family maybe even pleased with a subpar adaptation, it frustrates them. They're like, no, you don't understand. Go read the book. Like the book is better. I've been there. I've been guilty of that, and I'm sure I'll do it again in my lifetime.
Josh and Jim, a question to all three of us. Going into this, again, it's okay to analyze and like pre-show to voice our concerns. So since we don't have a lot of material early, like to talk about, like to compare it to, Silmarillion is one of them, right? And there's another book on like First Stage, something like just cliff notes, really.
Yeah, basically.
What is the unfinished tales?
Right. Yeah. What are your personal biggest worries for the show?
I don't have any.
So,
because I have no expectations for this.
Okay, I'll tell you mine. I'm again. Jimmy and I might even cover it a little bit because we're both kind of excited to watch it. But I'll tell you my concern. This is just a pure feeling thing. Amazon in the Wheel of Time and some of the previews I've seen for the show, it's all about their filming technique. There's a certain glossiness that the shots have that I just wish looked. And I don't know if like in the real time of the show it'll play better, but I feel like it makes it feel more TV-ish than it should, if that makes sense. There's just this kind of hue to it. Now, if the story is just phenomenal and like all I didn't like was that the camera filming or whatever they used didn't vibe with me, it's going to be a drop in the hat. But that's my only big concern based on the trailers, because I'm actually really intrigued for the show. They've been putting out little clips this week of like the worlds you're going to visit, like Numeron and the Southlands before they were like really Mordor. And I'm like, this would be kind of cool, because for a fan like me who hasn't read the textbooks of Tolkien, I'm like, ooh, I can maybe get some insight here that I didn't have on the culture. I'm vibing with this. But my biggest concern is like, I want it to have it maybe looks a little too glossy, a little too TV for the budget. I wish it maybe looked a little more. Game of Thrones had a really good look to it as far as an aesthetic. And that's a very minor thing, I know, but that's just what I've seen in the trailers that I'm like, I wish it was a little textured. I don't know.
The only thing, like, I guess my only concern is just going to be the fan backlash from it, because it's going to be deafening. Because I saw someone the other day, like they've been showing like a bunch of these new clips recently. Yeah. And they had one where it was Galadriel. She was on a boat and she was headed to Numenor.
Yeah.
And so many people were like, she never went to Numenor. And I'm like, how do we know that? Yeah. And they're like, because in the Silmarillion and in this book, it's basically a list of all the most it's supposed to be like the most prominent and most important things that happened in those years.
Yeah.
And Galadriel leaving and going to Numenor would be one of those things. We're like,
yeah. And I had Jim, I had a Twitter professor come at me this morning.
Nice.
Trying to explain to me that Truce at Bakura, my favorite Legends novel, didn't come out in 1999 just because that year was on my meme that I did. He went on this whole rant. Like, you don't even know Legends, these dates and all these facts. I'm like, oh, geez. I wouldn't even oblige him in this contest. My only concern with the show, honestly, is something that I unfortunately didn't experience with Kenobi. Is I want to be emotionally invested in characters. A, I want to feel for them, and B, I'm a little tiny bit worried. Like I don't have concerns for visuals. I actually do what I see in the trailer. Yes, it's a little bit puffy. It's a little bit like too colorful.
I can't keep my finger on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. It's gonna suffice me.
It's that glossy shine.
It is a glossy. I'm hoping they maybe like as the show gets progressive and it gets darker, maybe they change that, because I've seen shows do that where it's like Harry Potter in a way did that.
Yeah.
You watch the first like 3 movies, you're like, oh, and by like the time the 5th movie comes out, like it's all dark color gradient, all like, oh yeah,
like
God.
the first 2 movies were gold. Everything was
gold.
Had that blue wash filter on it.
Yeah.
But
anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Like my biggest concern is that I love my kung fu martial art movies. I don't want wire work, people jumping off the swords, like over the top, crazy stylized action. I want the action to be actually in line with Peter Jackson's like medieval swordsmanship and fencing kind of stuff.
I like that.
If it's a little bit stylized, it's fine. Again, I'm not too critical to hold on to the greatness that we had before, because we already have that greatness. If they spin it a little bit, it's fine. If it blows it out of proportion, it's just like people doing backflips and crazy stuff. I'm like, I don't know.
This is a kind of my ending thought here. I saw this user on Twitter. I don't know much about them besides I followed him after this tweet. His name's The Wonder of Tolkien. I saw this in my feed, and it kind of resonated to me, and why I almost thought about this topic, because this is kind of how I feel about Star Wars these days. And this is obviously someone who's kind of excited for the Rings of Power. And he was talking about some of the backlash for the show, because those Tolkien fans are kind of feeling it, how we Star Wars fans feel it with the High Republic and stuff. And he said, I guess I'm just trying to be different. Even if the show tanked, I still would not hop online to complain. I try to operate with hope. It keeps me from being cynical and pessimistic about everything. I'm just a child at heart, happy to enjoy Middle Earth again. And I think like that's how I kind of go into Star Wars stuff. And again, I have made negative videos about Star Wars. You can find my 20-minute video talking about what I would have done different in the Book of Boba Fett. I'm not saying don't criticize, love everything, but this is how I try to go into the projects, because I wouldn't have fun if I didn't. If I was like, how could you not help but be a little excited to see your favorite world again? Even if you don't like the show, you can't tell me you aren't a little bit excited. Like, man, I'd love to see Middle Earth. I'd love to see these islands before they were ruins that I saw in the Third Age. To me, I couldn't help but be a little excited. And if it's not good, well, that's a bummer. Like, again, The Wheel of Time is a book series I'm deep in. I've spent over 160 hours reading these books, and I'm not halfway done. And the show, I didn't think it was the best representation of the books. Now, over maybe the 4 or 5 seasons the show runs, maybe I change my mind and I say, actually, it was a pretty good adaptation. But look, doesn't change that I love those books. I'm still reading those books today. I read it on the way home from work. I still love the books. And I was excited when the show came out to see how they represent. And guess what? They nailed some of the characters. Some of the characters are like right off the page. I'm like, man, even the whole show, like dare I say, they maybe even casted some of the characters better than the book wrote them. Like they made some changes to the character. And I'm like, yes, that was a smart change. In particular, I think Tom Maryland's character is really well done in the show, more so than he's described in the book. So even though I don't really like the show, like I still got value out of it. When I read the book now, I kind of see those characters maybe a little different way. Like, ooh, I kind of see what they were visualizing. And overall, it ended up being kind of a win. Like I saw creature design, I saw magic design, and it kind of helped put images to my story. And even though I put the books way, way, way above the show, like I still love the books. The show just didn't really work for me. I don't know. That's just...
And I mean, like, I'm 26. I'm going to forever be an 8-year-old at heart when it comes to all this stuff that I love, like Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings. What I find interesting is like we hear these arguments for Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I never hear them from Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
I have never seen someone say, this isn't the Spider-Man that Stan Lee had in mind, or this isn't what Bob Kane envisioned with Batman. Like, why do we never hear that?
I'll tell you why.
It's always, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Batman. This is my favorite comic, neither of which are connected at all. So I'm like, what's the difference here? And you want to go on about, this wasn't in George's vision. Guess what? I got bad news for you. George Lucas does not care about Star Wars as much as you think he does.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Even when he did,
that's a great point.
Even when he didn't care about the lore as much as we do.
Of course, he played loose and fast with his own movies.
Even then, if it was his vision, why'd he sell it?
Jim, here's a perfect counter argument. Again, it's just talking about to this example of when people come into a conversation with a mindset to debate, disprove, prove their point, come on top, feel great about themselves. And you try to counter it with just basic reasonable observation when somebody says, well, the Star Wars original trilogy saga, sometimes I'm being accused of being an original trilogy purist. It's George started out so beautifully, and then he added prequels that he expanded the lore, and then sequels destroyed everything. Well, hold on a second. So you're telling me consistency was important. You're telling me that Luke and Leia get to kiss, and then at the last one, she didn't say like, oh my God, no, I just found out he's my brother. Ew, it was so wrong. It's like, no, somehow I always knew. It's like we see the natural evolution of ideas, but then there's a blindfold there. People plug their ears. They don't want to hear it because the moment you challenge somebody's flimsy ideas, you're suddenly, all these words we're not going to get into start flying around. People become very aggressive and all this stuff. It's Josh, literally, you just showed me this one tweet, and I went and I followed this person because we need a little bit more of that in the Star Wars community, in the geek community in general, in culturally, embracing other people's ideas, their passions, and just because you dislike something doesn't mean that other people shouldn't.
I think
that's the message here.
Yeah, and I think it's well said. And to Scott's response, there are comic book fans who definitely become purists. I think what Jimmy's calling out, and this is my kind of read on it, is in a weird way, and Ben can speak to this. Comic fans have almost been used to their character being taken and rewritten by whatever creative's in charge. There have been hundreds of iterations and variations of Spider-Man and Batman, and everyone might have their favorite author, their favorite run, their favorite arc. But comic fans, in a weird way, have like almost become used to it. Even though there are definitely those old grouchy fans out there.
Yeah, like no one talks about Bob Kane's Batman. They all talk about Frank Miller's Batman.
There you go. Yeah. Jimmy meaning they don't look at the first ever writer and say only Stan Lee had a good Spider-Man. They're like, dude, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was pure fire. It's like everyone has their.
It was, but
it was. Yeah. It's a fact. I mean,
but like to that point, that's the same thing. Like you're gonna go on about. This wasn't in George's vision. He even changed his original movies because the original movies weren't even his vision to begin with. He was Tony. I'm limited by the resources of my time.
He absolutely, and it does get frustrating me when people don't like. As a prequel
every
fan,
documentary ever, he says the same thing.
Yeah, as a prequel fan, as someone who will my hot Star Wars take is the prequels are just more enjoyable than the original trilogy. There's no arguing that there are pieces of the prequels that do not harmonize cleanly with the originals, and the guy wrote both. It wasn't like some corporation wrote, no, he wrote both, and there are clear things that do not harmonize well. We're not even talking about how Leia remembered her mother, okay? That didn't exist, right? There are just clear, like, character changes that feel like it doesn't really flow with what you showed me, but we still love it anyway. It still happens. And look, to Jimmy's point, I think George at a certain point realized, like, I love this world, love what I created, but like, man, these fans take it more serious than I do. I'm selling it. That's why George's famous quote, it's Star Wars Celebration or whatever it was about, like, it's a story for 12-year-olds or whatever. I mean, I think what led him to that quote is the frustration of all those years of people telling him he did it wrong and doing this. He's kind of like, I think he just literally put his hands up and said, guys, this is a kid's movie. Like, what do you want from me? Like, it's not going to be perfect. I'm sorry. I just made movies I thought would be fun for kids that I liked. Like,
he just wanted to make a fun movie, and he's like, oops, I accidentally created an empire.
Yeah, I think if you asked him, I think that quote came from that space. He just said it like, guys, it's a movie for 13-year-olds. Like, it's a movie for 12-year-olds. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I'm telling the best story I can. I like it. It's not always perfect, but like, you guys are taking it too seriously. Like, you're threatening my life. Like,
to this day, Josh, I keep bringing this movie up, and I agree. There's a lot of and I should say it deliberately so, like, toxic material in it. But when you watch People versus George Lucas, And, they deliberately populate the first half of that documentary with these obnoxious people who think they know better than George Lucas himself. But on the other half, like his friend chimes in, Francis Ford Coppola and other filmmakers, people just who are reserved in their opinions, who are like calm in front of the camera, who you could see clearly their passion for it, and people who weren't ready to crucify George for what he did. But they were clearly spelling out like their observations. Look, I am on the absolute bottom of understanding film critique. But I recognize there's people who sit down and they could look frame by frame and tell you with actual stuff like, look, this doesn't work here, this needs to be improved. And that's the entire job, not people who create flashy, headlines on these pseudo journalistic, reviews online. I'm talking about real film critics that you don't hear about. They're not on Rotten Tomatoes. Anyway, The point is, even those people, the way that they speak about it was like, look, there's a couple of issues here, and George Lucas just didn't know how to talk back to this. And he himself admits, look, I'm a good storyteller. I'm not a very great author. He says it actually in the interviews. He recognizes that he is the creator. That's why he let other people direct episode 5 and 6. And sometimes when you come into it from a human side and understand that George Lucas, surprise, surprise, is a flawed human being, and his set of skills as far as cinema goes are in this area, maybe not this area. And you could still go back to prequels and enjoy them from that perspective the way I do. I'm like, but this is what he was going for. This is what he was trying. And then I'm getting a hell of an author work on a prequel novel like we just read Brotherhood. And it blows your freaking mind because he's still pulling and revering what George Lucas created. And now he's taking it into a different direction. But we get a professional author working on it.
Yeah, and like I love my boy Alec in the chat. He said Han has about 50 different personalities across the books. I agree. Every book I've read that has Han in it, it's a different person. I feel like Han is one of the most difficult characters to write. And I love because in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, that's when I was like, this doesn't feel like Han at all because he's breathing down Luke's neck. He's like, I really think you should help Leia get a lightsaber. I think she needs to start this Jedi training. I'm like, that's not Han.
The dude who's the first movie is like, magic swords, wizards.
Which is why it felt more natural in The Force Awakens when he's like, I used to not think any of it, but it turns out it's true. Yeah. And I was like, that sounds more like what Han would say, not you should give her a lightsaber and start training her as soon as possible. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Very few authors got the likenesses of Luke, Han, Leia, and Lando precise. Yeah. And some of the stuff that we're getting in recent novels, like the Weapons of the Jedi, the trilogy of books for kids, Moving Target, and oh man, the likenesses are on point. It's such a rare treat. Once again, that perfect transition. But you could even enjoy Legends now. Like, all right, let's just roll with it. That's supposed to be fun. Let's go with the story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we move closer again to wrap up here. Rogue One next Friday, just a week from tomorrow. You have a chance to go see it again in IMAX. Check out an Andor preview. The Game of Thrones prequel coming in a week. We have Rings of Power coming in a week. We had Sandman come out. We had She-Hulk come out today. There is a lot of other content to enjoy as we lead up. Let us know down below what you're watching, what you're excited for. Make sure you guys are tuned in because the next 3 months, September, October, November, December, we're going to have Bad Batch. We're going to have Andor. We're going to have High Republic. We're going to have Tales of the Jedi. It's going to be exciting. We hope everyone is ready. This has been a little bit of a lull, but the storm is coming. It's on the way. So until then, thank you guys for being here. Jimmy and Ben, as
Don't
always.
go anywhere just yet. We have a Discord. And you should be
that's
in it.
Right. Yes, we will have a Discord. I don't know if the link is down below. I will get it. It's in our last video. It's in Ben's videos. So I will get the link in this description here shortly. And we will make sure that you guys can come talk to Jimmy. Has been holding the fort down, man. Jimmy does a great job being interactive in there and talking to people.
I had Discord on my phone at a job that was not important.
That is
I was on my phone a lot.
The perfect combo. But seriously, join. Let us know. In the future, we'll probably put video topic ideas there, maybe even Q&A. If we have a Q&A video, you can probably put your questions there. It'll be a good way to get a hold of us. Yeah. And overall, it's going to be a good time. So thank you guys for stopping by. As always, it's good to have the three of us back together again. No weather issues, no power issues. We're here and we are excited. So thank you guys again. We'll see y'all again very soon.